like the developments in the last few weeks have been totally out of the Clinton camp, which is it's Bernie can't win no matter, like they just will not, that can't be a reality that happens for them. And so she's on this weird psychopathic narcissistic campaign where she's releasing her own documentary on Hulu. It's like this 4-part series. And then out of that 4-part series, they've kind of gotten some stuff that is leaked, which is her saying that nobody liked Bernie Sanders. Ugh. And then it's that projection thing. And what I was saying to you before we started was it's really a striking lack of self-awareness, because if you think about it, okay, so 50% of the voting base of this country doesn't like you.
In 2016, that's what we saw.
And voted for Trump. And I think that most of them at this point are still going to vote for him again. Mm-hmm. And then Bernie's camp hates you so much that they didn't even go out to vote for you after they knew that you had fucked him. Mm-hmm. And now with you making comments to even give them more ammunition to have clear-cut reasons quoted from you to hate you, I would say conservatively 75% of the voting base hates Hillary Clinton.
That's very fair.
And for her to not see herself as any candidate's poison is just like, her endorsement right now is like toxic. I feel like that no candidate wants it.
Dude, I mean, like, I feel like she's going to endorse Warren or something like that if she doesn't enter the race herself, and Warren's campaign is going to be dead in the water if it isn't already. And it basically is.
It basically is. And yeah. I don't think that, and again, it's like, it's dead in the water because of all the choices that she's made because of Hillary's advice. Oh, yeah. Which, like, no one's explicitly said that Hillary gave her that advice to call Bernie a sexist and all this kind of stuff, but we fucking know it's her because that's all she had. She's like, yeah. And again, it's like I brought up this before, and a long time ago on this before, but it's a thing of like, it's so obvious when you watch the candidacy of Barack Obama in 2008, where it was like nothing was about him being black. He never talked about it. But then Hillary's thing is, it's time to vote for a woman. Stand up, ladies. It's our turn. And it was just so about identity. And so for Warren to pivot so hard in that direction, which we've kind of learned that as much as I used to like Elizabeth Warren, she is just this feckless kind of non-leader that will just basically lick her finger and put it to the wind and kind of see which direction it's going. And
right,
which is
Twitter
like
wins.
Twitter wins, which is stealing all of Bernie's campaign ideas, even though you don't stand for any of them. Pretending that you actually do. Then the Bernie bro thing, which is only a problem if you're on Twitter, capitalizing on that, calling him a sexist and everything else. And then now the latest thing is Joe Rogan, according to CNN.
Show it to me, daddy.
Bernie Sanders is facing a backlash from some Democrats after his campaign trumpeted an endorsement from comedian Joe Rogan, a popular podcast and YouTube talk show host with a history of making racist, homophobic, and transphobic comments.
And this was a few days ago. This was the 24th. It's now the 29th. So,
yeah,
we're 5 days late
because
behind on it. Of the timing of our podcast. But the thing is, like, you were telling me, you were saying before this, but if any of these people had just listened to like an episode of Joe Rogan, they would understand that he's not a racist. He's not a homophobe. Or transphobic.
What's been frustrating too is like there's people who are defending him, and rightfully so, because he's not done anything wrong, that have said, well, he probably should get a trans guest on, and he's had one. He had Buck Angel on, I think, twice.
Yeah.
And was perfectly respectful, and there was no weirdness to the conversation. Like, and again, it's like the only thing that you like they're laser focusing in on is a really valid concern. That the two hills that I've said publicly on here that I'm not willing to die on, which is giving kids hormones and male to female athletes in women's sports. It's obvious. It's like, because there's no female to male athletes who are beating men in events, but the male to female athletes are absolutely dominating every woman in the field, and it's like, and breaking their records in powerlifting, especially sports like that, where it's, and that woman who trans woman who won the biking event like by a mile, and it's just like there's and then it's so crazy to watch, because it's like I think that every relatively intellectual queer person is looking at this and going, they're all afraid to say that reality of these two things are like giving kids hormones and diagnosing them with gender dysphoria before secondary sex characteristics are present is completely unethical and wrong. I mean, that is not gray to me. That's black and white. It's obvious that this is not something we should be doing. And also too, it's like those things when you make declarative statements, you want to really think about how history is going to look at these statements, especially like even with our tiny audience, me recording them here. And it's like, and I'm making them because I do not think that history is going to look on this kindly. And the other one he got into hot water over it because he was talking about, I think it was Fallon Fox was the fighter's name, who literally broke the woman's skull that she was fighting with, and also was fighting against women without disclosing to the league that she was trans. But then there's so many dumb, useful idiot allies and activists who will trumpet these ideas and also say things that are just scientifically untrue. Like one of my favorite ones I saw going around during this was that if you start taking female hormones, you instantly lose all of that male advantage. And it's like, no. It's like bone density, shoulder width, hand size. Like,
the musculature that you've developed already in your life. It's like
away.
At that point you're an adult, so that exactly.
Yeah.
So
even then, it's like even if you started transitioning at like 14, you would still have like you would be statistically speaking taller, larger, your hands are going to be bigger, like those things aren't going to change because you're taking female hormones. It's like it just doesn't it's such a non-argument. And again, it's so I mean my point of even bringing up the CNN article, which is, or it's CNN that posted this, and this is immediately after this happened. And what's so peculiar about this as well is that I bet Rogan is, I find it, do you think that Bernie's campaign asked him permission to do that?
Asked Rogan's permission?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think so. Because I think he would have said no. I don't want this to be, like, I'll say it, but I don't want this to be, because you saw how they used it, right?
Yeah, it's like a clip from another guest.
They put his watermark on it, Bernie 2020, and then put it out as like, we got this primary endorsement from Joe, and it's like, and then his comment really was, well, I'll probably vote for Bernie. And then stupid Barry Weiss asks why, and then he says, well, because I met him and spent time with him, and I think that he's a person with some integrity. Basically, it was very basic. But then for them to clip it up and then put their watermark on it as if this is an official endorsement from Joe Rogan, as if he's doing a campaign video for like,
I don't know if they would have overlooked that though. That's such a massive thing that like that's his content. It's obviously he owns it. He's posted it to the internet. I wonder. I doubt they would not tell him about it.
I mean, the thing that I think we both can say for sure is that if Rogan knew what this was going to do, he would have been like, fuck no.
Well, hindsight is 2020.
Right.
The thing is, like, Rogan's fan base is probably more massive than Bernie's team's following on Twitter.
Yeah.
So why would he expect it to take off in any way? And who can really expect to see a CNN article like that the next morning?
Well, because I mean, like, I mean, I could have told them. It's like this is Clinton Camp 101 of like, how do we like? I mean, what this clearly is it's like it's the neoliberal establishment realizing finally admitting in a roundabout way how much more powerful Joe Rogan is than them.
Yeah,
like. The New York Times endorsement means so to Warren and Klobuchar is so minuscule in comparison to Rogan's endorsement, one man's endorsement of Bernie.
Yeah.
And then this guy, I mean, literally, so I mean, I think he's done nearly 2,000 podcasts at this point, each of which it's unusual if they're sub 2 hours at least. Mm-hmm. So that's 4,000 hours of him talking.
It's his full-time job.
It's his full-time job, but it's like, and again, it's like you look like, he has, in 1 week, he had a woman on, he had Cornel West on, he like a black guy. It's like, how can he has black comedians on, he's had Buck Angel on, and never has it ever been combative. And it's like the only thing they clipped out of context of him was him talking to, it might have been Shapiro, I don't really know, where it was like Shapiro was asking him about the backlash he got about telling the truth about the Fallon Fox thing, and then that turning into... Then they clipped that one thing out as if this is what he says all the time. And it's like, no, he doesn't. And like, and I think that the thing that they clipped out was him saying, it's a man, you know? And I think that, again, hindsight's 2020. It's like he would say, biologically, the sex is determined.
Yeah.
And like, but I don't understand how these useful idiots in the trans community are being duped into thinking that this is going to, this aggression towards a figure like Joe Rogan, who is, your fucking ally and advocate, and has been for his whole career. Has been doing his podcast for over 10 years. I've never heard him say something that's homophobic. Yeah, he says faggot and fag and stuff like that, but most of the time it's talking about somebody else that says it, and it's usually funny. And or making gay jokes. Some of them are funny, some of them aren't. I've never been personally offended by anything that man has said, and I'm a regular consumer of his content.
Yeah.
But
I think I said to you last week when this happened, we're so lucky that Rogan is not the man to suddenly turn and become alt-right, openly alt-right because of this attack from CNN, and that he'll just stay on track. He won't rescind his endorsement of Bernie
because he has integrity.
Exactly.
And it's one of those things of like what's I think the most, so I mean this is par in the course for CNN to do something like this. I'm not surprised at all that they would write that article, and I mean, as we know that they were actively working with the Clinton campaign in 2016, and as we saw by the question they gave to Bernie or to Warren of what did you think when Bernie said that comment to you, it's just like they're so clearly on the side of the neoliberal establishment that of course they would do anything, but that's so that's not frustrating, that's expected. What's frustrating is watching gay people rally around this lie from the neoliberal establishment and now being used as partisan tools to defeat Bernie off of lying, and then also in the process underestimating how popular Joe Rogan is, and also how unpopular a lot of these fringe ideas are in the gay community. And essentially it's been amazing to watch in the last 10 years, which is what I was warning about to all of my friends that were leaning towards this path 10 years ago, of like, you are going to destroy the goodwill that we have been working towards for the last 100 years in this country.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it's like, if you shut down somebody like Rogan and then because he'll never go against us actively because of this, but his fans will. And it's like, because they are, and that's, he fills such an important space of like kind of being the male Oprah of like, people generally need a thought leader to dictate what their thoughts are. And in terms of his worldview and his opinions, he's so on the right side, correct side of everything.
Yeah.
And even when he has some things that are sort of seen on the right end of the spectrum, which would be, he's kind of like me on immigration, kind of like me on guns. He's not as much of an absolutist, but he's close. He hunts, and hunts is another thing is considered right wing, which I don't know why that is exactly. It just is. But if you, again, it started when they were calling him a Nazi or putting him on that alt-right map, and it's been crazy to watch like actual like renowned journalism staples call him an alt-right figure, which is absolutely incredible. And then of course we had stupid fucking Charlotte Clymer chiming in on that one as well from the Human Rights Campaign. So now it's not only just gay useful idiots, it's also the gay establishment that is parroting this same fucking lie that he's anti-gay or transphobic or racist or whatever. And so if you guys really think that he is, will you define to me what the fuck transphobia and racism even means anymore? Because I'm fucking confused. I don't know what this means anymore to you. Like, what does it mean to you? Because as far as what Webster's tells me it means, you have a new definition, and it doesn't mean anything. Like, I've never heard Rogan say that the white race is better than any other race, or that trans people don't have a right to exist and they're terrible aberrations. He'll be sympathetic to guests that kind of lean into the mental illness side of things, which I kind of am willing to lend credence to as well. So I guess that makes me an alt-right figure as well. Like, it's just, and again, it's like, if you guys want to be this extreme and make this much declarative statements about everything, I don't really want to be on your team anymore. It's like, and so like, that's now this weird position. But I think the bright side of this is that Joe Rogan is such a large pop culture figure that it would be difficult to anybody with over a 90 IQ to not look at this and see what's happening clearly. And then also look at how much the far left is a cancer for the Democratic Party, like the far left identitarians, not like Bernie people who are kind of socialist.
Progressive. Bernie's a progressive, but the far left is completely different.
It's an identitarian border. It's like a borderline identitarian fascist movement, I would say. as in, and it's very racist. It's like now we rank people. People are now better based on the more or the less white and straight they are, which is just very racist. And it's interesting. So that's something else that kind of ties into this.
Well, I mean,
Or-
Bernie's team didn't
Rescind it, which was
didn't take
amazing
down their
because he has
tweet.
been such a pussy about these things in the past.
So Bernie's team didn't take down the tweet. They actually posted a statement later that was like, "Look, we're trying to build a unified party,
Right.
and this is the way to do it."
Yep.
And so they didn't apologize for it. So fuck you guys.
So what?
Fuck CNN.
Well, of course. What, and why would they? And and the next clip I have is from them too. I don't know if you saw this, but this is Don Lemon and talking to some fucking strategist idiots. But I'll just let it go without commentary.
And obviously it's false. And look, he also knows deep in his heart that Donald Trump couldn't find Ukraine on a map if you had the letter U and a picture of an actual physical crane next to it. He knows that this is, an administration defined by ignorance of the world. And so that's partly him playing to their base and playing to their audience, the credulous boomer Rube demo that backs Donald Trump, that wants to think that Donald Trump's the smart one and y'all elitists are dumb.
You elitists with your geography and your maps and your spelling, even though
your math and your reading.
Yeah, you're reading.
So this really illustrates why the Democrats are going to lose. It's like
I didn't crack a single laugh
because it
during
wasn't
that.
funny
No.
at all. And Don Lemon
performative.
is completely performing. Yeah, and it's like but let's really break down what they were just saying. Everyone that voted for Trump, and Trump compared to Hillary was the only one that was talking to middle America, lying and saying I'm going to bring your jobs back and coal mining and all this kind of stuff. He was lying.
Yeah.
But it was like people who are white and poor and desperate, and then they saw him as a hope that could bring it back. And Don Lemon is laughing at people who he makes their salary in 5 minutes, and he thinks it's hilarious that they would vote for somebody else who promised to make them not starve with their families.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that like so much of the left identitarian stuff is so similar to how we talked about black people during segregation era. It's so because at the root of all racism is class. It's class divide. And
Class doesn't just mean money; it means income. It's all of these things
all of
tie
it.
into that. Yeah,
but it's like so much of how we oppressed minorities in the past has been based on a class structure.
Yeah.
And so for them to not realize again that history is going to look so not kindly on these people, like so badly, because again, it's like how long can this possibly go on? Like white people are going to be we already are the global minority. So it's like, how long are you going to keep doing this in this country? Because we're not going to be the majority for very long, like in the grand scheme of time. I mean, by the time we're old men, white people are definitely going to be the minority in this country. There's like no question about it. And so it's like, I don't really understand who they're talking to, number one. What person of color that isn't on Twitter finds this endearing or interesting? Or not race. It's so interesting to me that they're hedging all their bets on this stuff, and like no one has these jobs when they're. I mean, I think Don Lemon's actually dumb. I don't know how he got that job, but like most of the people on that network aren't, and people who run it certainly are. Jeff Zucker's not a stupid person. The guy who runs CNN. So what is their goal here? Other than to me, they want Trump to win. I literally can't because again, it's like. Biden's going to lose if he goes up against Trump. There's no question about it. The only way Bernie would stand a chance would be if he picked Tulsi as a running mate, which I think could pull some disaffected Trump people over. But then we have people like Hillary Clinton saying that they won't endorse him. And then Joe Biden just said recently that he won't endorse Bernie either if he gets the nomination. So it's like, so the whole Democratic establishment won't put their weight behind a candidate that they don't like, even though they would expect Bernie to do the same thing. And also, that's another thing. If Bernie fucking cucks out and endorses one of these people after they said they wouldn't do it to him, like, it just is going to be the second giant humiliation for him. And again, if he doesn't have the foresight to think, look at how she's talked shit about you and about how you didn't campaign for her and you hurt her, even though you did like way more events for her than she did for Barack Obama. Like
She did what?
8?
12?
8.
Okay, yeah, 8.
And then he did like 36, like 5 in one day.
Yeah.
Like he did more campaign stops than she did
Yeah.
for herself.
Yeah.
And so it's like, dude, you have to start defending yourself and standing up for yourself. And this is your last run, man. Like, you're not going to run again. That would be crazy. And so if you don't burn this thing down on your way out, you have failed this country in a big fucking way. And so like that's kind of where I'm sitting now, of like, these people really need to be taught a lesson. And again, it's like this establishment that is the Democratic Party, now that it's so tied to media organizations and also like billionaire oligarchs like Hillary Clinton and her cronies, and it needs to be destroyed and broken up into smaller pieces. Like, it cannot exist as it is anymore. And again, I would say the same thing about the Republicans if they had fucked Donald Trump out of the nomination. But clearly they're corrupt, but clearly they're not as corrupt as the DNC because they allowed that to happen, even though they didn't want it to happen. But I truly think that CNN is loving Trump for ratings.
Yeah, I think it's the division. It's the quantifiable division that makes them money. And so why not just have people on to laugh about how uneducated and how stupid half the country is for voting for Trump and how they're all in poverty or whatever. It's like they're doing this because of the money and the ratings, and they don't care if he wins again because it'll be so good for them.
Right.
And that's what makes the CEO of CNN smart, because he's a businessman and he's doing it for money.
Right.
It's not an actual news organization. It's a business. So obviously he's going to do what's best for their profit margin.
And then for like MSNBC, Trump was an NBC employee befwe this. Mm-hmm. So it just, I don't know, this all reeks to me. And again, it's like, initially you're like, why would CNN take such a hard stance on Joe Rogan? And then you go, oh, because he gets way more viewers than you.
He's direct competition.
He's
for that.
much more influential than you guys are. And he's one man with one producer in a warehouse.
Yeah.
So
he's a huge threat.
Right. And well, he's not even anymore. He's one.
Yeah.
So like the fact that they think that they can win it back somehow is mind-boggling to me. If I were CNN, I would make all the hosts do podcasts. and then like you would realize that Don Lemon can't fucking do that because he's borderline deficient.
He has to be fed lines and There's
Cuomo,
nothing for him to
fucking
talk about.
Fredo, or like all like that's the thing is like CNN's main cast, which is Blitzer, Fredo, Don Lemon, who cares else? None of them, Cooper, none of them are interesting people at all. None of them. And also don't talk to people who are not exactly like them, which is what Rogan's big benefit is. Mm-hmm. Like I love that Rogan will have someone like Shapiro on, or even Steven fucking Crowder. It's like, it's interesting to hear him talk to these people that have a different worldview, because then you realize that like this kind of partisan divide is not really reflective of how humanity is. It's like, oh, I can see some things that Shapiro says that is valid, and also him, because again, it's like you should just always be on the search for the better argument, and sometimes conservatives have it.